We're in Los Angeles, California. The date is Wednesday, August 21st, 2019. The time is approximately 10:50. My name is Jeff Angija. I'm the lead administrative law judge for this hearing. My co-panelists today are Linda Cheng and Richard Tay. Thank you everybody for attending and for the delay. We're trying to sort out a few scheduling issues. Appellant, could you please identify yourself for the record?
Steve Dubin, CPA, representing the appellant.
Steve Arnold.
Thank you. And for the department, CDTFA, could you please introduce yourself?
Chad Backus. Stephen Smith.
And Lisa Renati.
All right, thank you. And this appeal involves three issues, which are whether appellant is personally liable under Revenue and Taxation Code Section 6829 for the unpaid liabilities of Legends Home Furnishings, Inc. We'll refer to them as Legends. Second, whether any reduction is warranted to the measure of understated taxable sales. And third, whether Legends was negligent. During our pre-hearing conferences, the parties agreed to the admission into evidence of appellant's Exhibits 1 and 2 and CDTFA's Exhibits A through F. Neither party had any objection to the admission of those those exhibits into evidence. I believe that's still the case.
Yes.
Okay. You guys had no objection. So I hereby admit those exhibits into evidence. One small wrinkle, I didn't create an exhibit hearing binder. Our PDF doesn't have your packet of A through F. I know all those exhibits are individually in our files. Can you guys send that over to the taxpayer as well as us soon this week when you get back to the office?
Yes.
Thank you. My error. They're still in the record. It's just not going to be as convenient as it otherwise would have been. I apologize. Based on our pre-hearing conference, it's my understanding that Mr. Arnold will testify as a witness today. Is that still true? All
That's
right.
correct.
So when we get to that spot, I'll swear you in. And we agreed during the pre-hearing conference we would begin with appellant's testimony and argument that would not exceed 30 minutes. CDTFA as well as the judges could ask questions. CDTFA would then make its presentation not to exceed 30 minutes. The parties could ask questions. And if necessary, we can allow a 5-minute rebuttal for you to be able to have the last word as well as the first word. And I note that during our pre-hearing conference, the parties stipulated to the following facts: that Legends ceased business operations on or about July 24th, 2012. Legends collected sales tax reimbursement on all of its retail sales of tangible personal property during the audit period, and that appellant was Legends president, chief financial officer, sole director, and sole shareholder throughout Legends' entire existence. Okay, so that's still true and that was stipulated. Okay, so Mr. Arnold, let me swear you in. Will you please stand and raise your right hand? Do you solemnly swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Thank you. All right, go ahead and begin. Either one of you can make your presentation. Mr. Arnold's testimony would be under oath.
No, primarily the three issues at hand.
Can you turn on your microphone so we can?
Oh, okay.
Sorry, thank you.
There we go. The three issues dealing with the situation primarily whether Mr. Arnold is personally liable under the Revenue and Taxation Code 6829, and we're saying that he's not liable. We come to extenuating circumstances at the time that during the course of the issue under audit, Mr. Arnold was ill. He had just suffered a major loss on a fire in the San Diego area. That affected his health. He was coming into the store maybe once or twice a week for a couple hours just to sign checks. He had an office manager, bookkeeper that he was relying on. They were pretty much running the business. They would prepare forms, whatever they needed, bills, and prepare checks, leave them for Mr. Arnold on his desk. He'd come in, take a look at them, sign the checks. With regard to the tax returns, they were being prepared from computer-generated documents recording all the sales and the sales tax that was collected. Sales tax returns were being prepared based on that. And Mr. Arnold, again, unaware of the details going into it, relying on the people who prepared it, and it was coming off the computer generating total sales tax. Those were prepared. He signed the forms, prepared the checks, and that was about it. During the course of the issue and during the investigation, there were various documents presented to the state showing that Mr. Arnold was, due to his illness, was out of the office, wasn't present. There's no question that he does own the company. He was the one signing the checks, but the responsibility of being passed down to the lower level. The other thing, other issue is whether a reduction is warranted. The alleged unreported income was based on various deposit analysis and analysis that the state performed. We don't dispute those analyses, but there was something as we were going through and determining why there was such a discrepancy from reported sales versus what we had reported on the tax, or what Mr. Arnold had reported on the tax returns compared to what the state had determined as unreported. We went through and determined that there was non-taxable income being received during the course of the time. It was a warehouse that Mr. Arnold was operating, and he was renting out space in that warehouse to various various businesses in town. He was also running a delivery service there through that warehouse for other businesses in town and for ourselves.
They were doing fulfillments for different companies, Amazon,
Also, Mr. Arnold was telling me they were doing fulfillment services for some of the fulfillment services like Amazon and
for other companies.
you can come in a moment. The third item about whether Legends was negligent. The negligence is based on a couple items. From what I gather, it's based on the actions involved, the size and the potential tax. And there was an issue there that the Legends had been audited once before, many years before, and therefore Mr. Arnold was knowledgeable of the workings of the tax law and everything. It's my recollection from back at that time that the only issue that I recall from that audit, and it was never completely substantiated by the state as to what those issues were, but the primary issue was at that time Mr. Arnold was delivering furniture to customers using his own truck and not charging sales tax on those delivery charges. It was determined that sales tax should have been charged on delivery when we were delivering the furniture using our own vehicle. Well, we agreed to that and changed the method of dealing with sales tax on deliveries, and then subsequently stopped using our own truck because it was too expensive to maintain. So hired a delivery service to handle it. Therefore, the deliveries became non-taxable. You want to?
It's just all of this is just during the time that I was ill. I just gave this to our attorney and Mr. Dubin, but we couldn't figure out where the money was. That they're saying they're showing the figure here, and our computer generates every sale. Nothing can take place without having to go through the computer, especially the numbers, what they're talking about. And we really couldn't figure it out. And I just left it up to everybody else to deal with it because my health was more important at the time. And then we realized that the question came up is how does Delivery Plus monies put into the returns, and it goes into the top number. And at that point there was when we realized that the number that they're looking at, the dollars that are in the bank account and dollars that are on the income tax returns are higher than what the sales tax returns were. And at that point is when we made the call to Mr. Dubin and asked him how is that being reported. At that time is when we found out that it was put into the top figure and never broken down as untaxable. All the computer printouts, the software package is made for our industry. The number they talk about is just impossible when you have employees working for you and you have sales manager, store manager, and the office manager all watching out for you. It's just impossible that there could be sales that were taken or done outside the computer.
We did prepare at the time, and I submitted to the state, how you want to refer to it. We didn't call it an amended return. We prepared corrected state income or federal income tax returns and sales tax returns. We didn't change the total revenue. What we did was show the allocation of the non-taxable or not subject to sales tax revenue from the original report, showing that what we had was there was reimbursed expenses that we were getting from, but we were collecting rent, delivery, income, and storage fees that was shown, reallocating the gross revenue that was shown on the corporate tax returns and also on the sales tax reports that were submitted. The reply from the state at the time was these are amended returns. They're being prepared after the audit was started. We tried to contend they were not considered as amended returns. We weren't looking for any refunds for anything. What we were looking for was to point out that there was revenue received by Legends that was not subject to sales tax.
My response at the time was that when that young lady said that it's not, you cannot amend it when you are under audit, and the bottom line is trying to figure out what money is where, and of course I have a concern. You know, if somebody was doing something in my company, taking money or what, and it just frustrates the crap out of me that someone says, I'm sorry, once something is done, you can't do anything else. And the bottom line is what we want to get to is the truth. And we found it, and we figured it out. We called and got letters from the vendors that paid us. And we called everybody we could. One company's completely out of business, so we tried to find employees that sent checks to company I have to. And to have someone say, I'm sorry, we don't accept that once an audit starts. I'm sorry, I just don't find it trying to be fair, because that's what we're supposed to do, is try to be fair and try to get the truth out. So if we have guidelines, we follow the guidelines. So, but you know, to sit there and say we're not going to accept this because an audit already started, I just don't want to. I'm here today to try to clear up everything. I just lost my son. I should be home sitting Shiva, but instead we want to bring up all the stuff. And it just keeps coming back in my mind that somebody says, I'm sorry, we don't accept it, but it's the truth, but you won't accept it. We signed under perjury of law that this is correct. That's what we did. If the IRS wants to come after me saying that we lied or something, welcome, because we have proof. And the Board of Equalization didn't want to accept it. It just flows completely freshly said, shit.
Does that conclude your presentation?
At this time,
Okay.
yes.
You'll have rebuttal. CDTFA? Go ahead and start.
A person may be held personally liable for the unpaid sales and use tax liabilities of a corporation pursuant to section 6829 if the following elements are satisfied. The business of the corporation must be terminated. The corporation must have collected sales tax reimbursement on its sales of tangible personal property. The person must have been responsible for the sales and use tax matters of the corporation, which includes the filing of returns and the payment of tax. And the person's failure to pay the tax must have been willful. Now here there is no dispute as to the first two elements. Both parties agree that Legends ceased business operations on July 24, 2012, and that it collected sales tax reimbursement on its sales of tangible personal property. As to the third element, responsible person means any person having control or supervision of, or who was charged with the responsibility for the filing of returns or the payment of tax, or who had a duty to act for the corporation in complying with any provision of the sales and use tax law when the taxes became due. Initially, we note that there is no dispute that appellant was Legends' president and sole corporate officer at all times during the liability period. As Legends' president, appellant had a general responsibility to file Legends' sales and use tax returns and pay the taxes. Appellant's actions during the liability period also established that he was involved in Legends' compliance with the sales and use tax law. For example, in Exhibit B, now just so I can clarify something, Exhibit B has many exhibits within it, and so I'm going to refer to each sub-exhibit as a tab. So in Exhibit B, tab 7, and Exhibit D, tab E. They both provide copies of Legends sales and use tax returns which were signed by appellant, and those were for the periods fourth quarter 2007 through first quarter 2009 and third quarter 2009. Appellant electronically filed Legends sales and use tax returns for fourth quarter 2009 through first quarter 2012, and also filed prepayment forms electronically for 2010, 11, and 12. Exhibit B, tab 6 shows that appellant communicated with the department on December 11th, 2007 and June 30th, 2011 regarding Legends account status and outstanding liabilities. And finally, Exhibit B, tab 4 shows that appellant signed 4 waiver of limitation forms during Legends audit. Appellant signing and electronically filing returns, his communications with the department regarding Legends account status, and the fact that appellant signed waivers during the audit show that he was directly involved in Legends compliance with the sales and use tax law and the filing of sales and use tax returns. Based on this evidence, appellant was a person responsible for handling Legends sales and use tax matters, which included the filing of sales and use tax returns and the payment of tax when the taxes at issue became due. As to the fourth element, a person's failure to pay the tax is willful if a person had knowledge that the taxes were not being paid and had the authority and ability to pay the taxes but failed to do so. As to knowledge, Legends tax liabilities originate from a sales and use tax audit, which determined that Legends underreported its total sales. The department determined the liability by analyzing Legends bank account deposits. The department found that during the period at issue, Legends deposited over $4.3 million into its bank accounts, but only reported total sales of $1.5 million, a difference of almost $3 million, or an average difference of almost $240,000 per quarter. At all times during the liability period, appellant was Legends' sole corporate officer. There's no dispute that he had access to Legends bank accounts. Appellant signed or electronically submitted Legends sales and use tax returns during the liability period. An almost $3 million difference in the amount of money going into the bank accounts and what was being reported on sales and use tax returns cannot be explained away as a mere oversight. While we empathize with appellant's health issues that he was experiencing at the time, it is not reasonable for the sole corporate officer of a corporation who has access to the bank accounts and who is submitting the sales and use tax returns to not notice an excess of almost $3 million over a 3-year period. Therefore, the evidence shows that appellant knew that bank deposits exceeded reported total sales. As to authority to pay the taxes, appellant was Legends president and sole corporate officer. Exhibit B, tab 8 shows that appellant signed 5 authorization agreements for electronic funds transfer with the department. Exhibit B, tabs 18 and 20 show that appellant signed checks issued to Legends suppliers, and Exhibit B, tab 6 shows that appellant communicated with the department on 2 separate occasions regarding Legends account status, and both times indicated that he would pay the balance on the account. Based on this evidence, appellant had the authority to pay the taxes, and appellant has presented no documentary evidence to dispute this. Finally, as to ability to pay the taxes, Legends had funds available to pay the taxes, but instead used those funds to pay other creditors. Exhibit B provides a breakdown of funds available during the liability period. It shows that Legends had over $4 million in bank deposits, paid almost $900,000 in wages from third quarter 2007 through third quarter 2012, paid almost $400,000 in lease payments from first quarter 2010 through second quarter 2012, and paid over $200,000 to vendors during the period third quarter 2007 through second quarter 2012. This evidence shows that there were available funds to pay Legends tax liability, but the funds were paid to other creditors instead. Appellant has presented no documentary evidence to dispute this evidence. Based on all of the evidence provided, the department has clearly met its burden of proving that appellant is personally liable for Legend's unpaid sales tax liabilities. As to the underlying audit, the department conducted the sales use tax audit, and pursuant to the audit working papers found in Exhibit C, the department found Legend's bank deposits exceeded reported total sales by almost $3 million. While appellant contends that some of those deposits constituted non-taxable rental receipts, there has been no evidence provided to us at any time to substantiate that claim. Our information that we received from appellant indicates that there was approximately $73,500 per quarter of non-taxable rental receipts, which over the course of the audit equals a little over $880,000. And even if we were to accept that those were non-taxable rental receipts, there's still an almost $2 million difference in the amount of bank deposits to what was reported on sales and use tax returns, which is an average difference of more than $165,000 per quarter. And there has never been an explanation provided for that remaining difference. I'll quickly address I know they're not technically amended returns that were filed. On those returns, appellant has subtracted the $73,500 from total sales, which doesn't get at the issue of excess bank deposits. It merely reduces the amount of taxable sales each quarter, which then increases the difference between what was the bank deposits. So finally, as to the negligence penalty, the department imposed a negligence penalty of $24,008.24 based on Legend's failure to properly report its total sales, resulting in an underreporting error rate of over 200%. Legend's consistently underreported its total sales throughout the liability period, again with no real explanation. And as to this time, appellant has not provided any evidence that its reporting methods were not negligent. And regarding the prior audit, the department believes that even without the prior audit, even if we were to consider this a first-time audit, that the amount of underreporting is so great that the negligence penalty is still warranted in that case. Thank you.
Does that conclude your presentation?
It does.
All right. I'll turn it back to
Yes.
Mr. Arnold for rebuttal.
Let me see if I can kind of explain. First of all, evidence was given. We have 3 companies under there. There's a manufacturing company in Los Angeles. We paid their payroll, we paid their invoices. If you look at the invoices, you look at what the purchase orders, it has to do with raw materials that we don't have in our company of sales. What we did, because of the company in Los Angeles, we wanted to keep the dollars away from being mishandled. So my secretary set up a thing with them, and we had a ledger that showed we would pay their vendors, and in return we would deduct the merchandise that was brought down. That's was given to them, the evidence showing that, plus dollars that were invested that to cover their expenses for new equipment. You point.
I'll wait till you're done. I'm still trying to wrap my brain around that transaction and how that works, but.
How it works is this way. Let me see if I can make it easier. We're a retail store in San Diego. We found a company in Los Angeles that was in dire need of cash flow and management. So we made an investment into that company to buy controlling interests of it So they would manufacture all of their merchandise for us, for our stores, reducing the overall cost of operating and expenses so we could sell at a lower price. After about 6 months of operating that way, we found out that there was multiple people being paid in that company that weren't really employed. There was supposed to be, I think there was like 10 ladies that were sewing, and we only had 8. And it came to our attention, my secretary brought to me that there is a problem there. And so we decided to do an investigation, and we went ahead and found out that one of the owners that was up there had 2 people being paid, which was his mother and his sister, that never worked. At that point there, we took all operations away from them, and we said we will handle all payables and receivables, and as their payroll needs to be done, we will go ahead and pay them for that. Our whole purpose was to generate a lower cost that we can go ahead and have up on any type of competition. We didn't care if the factory made $1 at the end of the year, as long as we covered all of their cost. So dollars that came in, either from people that they would go ahead and sell wholesale to as well. And we have a letter from one of those people in Orange County. And that evidence was given to them. They bought merchandise directly from the factory. We took the receivable and we paid the bills for the factory. Second thing was the delivery service. The delivery service was a company that we had a lot of space, and we rented out half of the building to a company called Freedom Furniture. Freedom Furniture went ahead and paid us monthly for the storage as well as for deliveries. We also collected from designers that would sell products and then bring it to us, and we received their CODs. We have payables to show that we paid back the designers, and we have payables to show we paid the taxes for the wages for those employees. As to saying that we did not have, that we didn't give him evidence, he has the letters. We gave them the letters from the people that showed that. One company we couldn't get. All the merchandise, when I got sick, all my reports and everything were generated by computer for our sales, had nothing else to do with anything else. My office manager did all that, generated it, and my wife would drive me down on Mondays mostly to sign whatever papers she would put in a file in my desk. The $3 million that the gentleman's talking about includes investments that we gave to the factory to help buy new equipment, things like that. And we gave them the copies of the receipts from my broker account that showed that we took that money out of there and that we loaned it to the company. And we gave them all those things because I have paid a ton of money for copies for it. So the gentleman is completely wrong saying we have given him no evidence on that.
All right. Does that conclude your rebuttal?
I don't know.
All right, well, you can still ask questions or comment as needed.
All tax returns were paid as they were put to me.
Okay. So this is probably, I'm getting feedback, this is probably the proper time to say, whatever documents you provided to CDTFA during the course of the audit or the appeal, we're a separate agency. So things like the letters or receipts from a withdrawal from an investment account, we don't have that in our file. I haven't seen it. But also let me qualify this with what we need to see to try to help you and help resolve this case. They've based their assessment on bank deposits. And so what we would be looking to see is proof that bank deposits resulted from non-sales transactions. So you would want to be able to trace a deposit from a non-source. I understand what you're, at least I think I understand what you're describing in terms of the manufacturer and paying their payroll, but those are payments out.
There's money coming in.
Okay, but what we would need to see, and what I was explaining we don't yet have in our record, is a tracing of those types of non-sales deposits into a bank account. So you're going to want to gear your presentation or evidence to that.
All of that was given to them because they reduced it at one point, saying, okay, we accept these investments from your account. We can see the transfer from your bank from my personal bank to my bank,
So-
to the business bank.
And I know your CDTFA, your brief talks about a net bank deposits analysis. I'm assuming, although I don't have the details in my head, I'm assuming that you've made adjustments for non-sales transactions that you can verify. My question is, for example, some of the items that you're saying was non-sales deposits was rent from the warehouse, for instance.
Yeah,
I haven't seen canceled checks or a contract. I'm trying to help you help us. That's the type of evidence that we would be looking to. We don't have that in the record. If they've got it, we don't have it yet, but if you have it, whether or not you gave it to them, we would want to see that. So I'm trying to give you some guidance as to what you want to show if you could, or provide if you've got it that we haven't seen yet.
I believe that the auditor at the time was going through the bank deposits and was able to reconcile those transfers that came from either Mr. Arnold's personal bank account or from his investment account. It doesn't sound like the numbers they're talking about, that $4 million in deposits and $1 million in sales, and round numbers, leaving $3 million unaccounted for, took into account any of those transfers that they had previously seen and accepted.
Can you guys speak to that?
The amount of bank deposits is net of delivery services, checks from the taxpayer's personal accounts, checks from Commonwealth funds. All of those have been subtracted out from the bank deposit amounts.
All right. Okay. While you're looking, do my co-panelists have questions? I might have taken the wind out of their sails.
I'm sorry.
Questions? Okay. So, if you've got something that you want us to see that we haven't seen, we can leave the record open to do that.
So I have invoicing from that, we invoice, you know, we have 3 days, 10 hours, $750. I have letters that they have that are from the people that were purchasing from us and paying the dollars to us. I'm assuming they had all that because it was all given to them.
Is it, I don't know if you've got the work papers here, and I don't want to drag today out. Is it possible to take a look at one or two of what he's pointing to so you could see if you've seen it before?
Sure.
There's an invoice.
If you're inclined, what I can do is would drag it out, but I'd rather have us get at the correct amount as best we can.
Yeah.
If you want, we could, I don't know how much additional time I'd have to do, but for you to be able, 15 days or 30 days to provide to them and us what you believe has been missing or neglected. I would allow them time to respond.
We've sent them all the letters from all of the people that were involved, ex-employees, my ex-office manager that talked about me not being there, the customers up in Orange County, sales reps, all that was sent.
Have you seen that sort of information?
Right, we have, I believe we've seen all the letters. I believe they're in the exhibits.
Okay.
Whether in appellant's exhibits or in ours. There's one thing I will say, and maybe this particular invoice is not within the audit period, so appellant would have to make sure that the invoices are within the audit period.
That's just to show the
I
invoice of what
understand.
we do with them. So
Understood.
I got sick and everything was turned over to the attorney and I was gonna have lung removed. So I left everything in his hands. And we were going through papers. Of course, we gathered what we could. And I see invoices that I found. That just shows the type of work that we did.
Okay. But, so, do you have documentation, first of all, how much documentation are we talking about? Is it, and has it already been provided?
This is all that I got the day I found out about my lung, the day is when I left, is the last day I was there. And I asked that they bring me over everything to give to the attorney, for him to
But
do
has all that been provided to you?
everything that I'm assuming that I paid a ton of money to the attorney, and then, you know, this has gone on too far. I don't have the money in order to pay attorney's
I
fees.
believe we did provide everything. I have to go back through our stack of paper like they've got a big stack and see what was and what wasn't. But I'm pretty sure that what we provided them, they had what they provided back to us. We've got copies of work papers and everything else, so.
So let's do this.
I had no control, or no, I had no supervision, no control. I came in, my wife drove me in the morning, I signed papers, and went back home.
I understand that part.
And it just, to hear that they're implying that I had full control of everything. Main thing was people to have their jobs, that's it.
I understand. 30 days to keep it open for them to do. So, if we keep the record open for 30 days, you may not need all that 30 days, but I would like to make sure that you've had the opportunity to give us what you want us to see. And it might be easier to give it even if we've already got it or you think we've already got it. And then we'll transmit it to CDTFA for them to be able to respond to. You can have a response to that if necessary. But I want to make sure we've got everything that you have to support your case before we start making a decision in this
You
matter.
want us to direct whatever we find directly to you?
Claudia, you've got that email address?
Yes, I do.
So, and copy to them, but I don't want you to have to make photocopies of that. We'll digitize it, we'll make sure they've got a copy. It may be duplicative, but I would rather be abundantly cautious and make sure we've got everything.
What we can find, we can shoot PDF and send it to you electronically.
That works too.
Then you can forward there.
Yes, we would do that.
We wouldn't have to come back up here.
No, it would be, up to this point, it would be based on the writings, because we understand your arguments. I just want to make sure that some of the evidence that you're talking about that is not in my record, I would like to have it in that record, so we can.
Why it's not there.
Okay. Yeah, and please have it be within the audit period,
It's,
because we won't be able to rely on it to make adjustments if it's not from the audit period.
Understood.
And again, this was a bank deposits analysis, so you're gonna ultimately wanna be able to tie it to bank deposits, right? For example, the fact that there's an amended income tax return doesn't negate a bank deposit, right? That's what we need to do. You have to have the same audit method, otherwise it's apples and oranges.
deposits were there, but they came from different sources.
But we need to see the source
We need to
documentation.
analyze the deposits.
Okay, so, I'll close, go ahead. Sure.
I just have one question for the appellant. Can you just explain a little bit about how you went about making those investments into the factory equipment that you alluded to? Like how you made that business decision to, you know, withdraw funds from your personal account and into the business?
It's pretty simple. I was sick. My banker called me and said that they need to transfer X amount of dollars into the account. I called my secretary and asked her for what, and she would tell me that the factory needs some machines, materials, things like that, and then I would call my banker and tell him it was perfectly fine to put that funds from my account into the Legends account. And then they would go ahead and do a transfer to the bank up in LA, in Linwood, and that would pay for the equipment. And that would be for new sewing machines, materials, things that we need. Machines, we did our own frames, so we had machines that cut the lumber. We had a carpentry department that built everything. We made it from scratch, so if somebody wanted a certain size, the factory would make it. So I would just tell my banker that at the time, I would say, that's fine, after I called my secretary and asked what they were for.
Okay, and the manufacturing company, that's a separate entity, is that correct?
Yes, it was called Legends Manufacturing, Inc. And that was all run by, well, it was two people until we found one that was stealing. And then it was, and at that time, one person, William Ramos.
And the delivery services company, that's a separate entity as well?
Delivery service was Delivery Plus Services doing business, or Legends Furniture doing business as Delivery Plus Services.
This is the DBA at the time.
We bought that company from approved, so we can also, we're hoping to go ahead and have from one point to the customer's home without having a problem, or without those extra expenses. And during the good time, where you can get the couch built in 7 days, and it goes directly to the warehouse, and the warehouse has their separate people there. They handle all of everything, and then the only thing we'd do is the funds would then come back to us, so we didn't have other people sign checks ever. So I didn't want the factory to have a checking account for, sign things without having just small amounts of money in there for little things. They needed more springs or whatever. So we just wanted to make sure that we had tried to get some control, and my secretary was excellent at that, controlling this.
Thank you.
Okay.
All right, so I'll close the hearing, not the record. I have an order confirming this, but I'll allow 30 days for you to provide additional evidence, be over-inclusive, because if it's already in there, that's okay. We'll then give CDTFA 30 days to respond to that. I'll give you a response if necessary. I'd then issue an order closing the record, and then we would have 100 days from that date, whatever date that will be, in which to issue our opinion. But otherwise, thank you for your time here today, and that'll close the record. Sorry, close the hearing, but not the record.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And I believe we're taking a 10-minute break, is it? Yeah.